Hello there, Year 8, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to continue our studies. After learning about the circulatory system of the human body, we have to add something special to our knowledge. There's a relatively smaller organ. I mean smaller because the weight of it is only around 1.5 kilograms. It's like 2% of your body weight, but still controls everything in your body. You can just see it right here behind me. And one more thing, it has two different colors, and the colors are important. I could say colors matter, because the outer part of it is the so-called gray matter. You know, it contains really many nerve cells, and the inner part is the white matter containing the nerve fibers. So yes, I'm speaking about our nervous system and the human brain. You can see it right behind me. And if we just check certain parts of it, let's see. So this is what is in your skull, and basically we can have many different parts. We are going to go into certain details today, and we will analyze the functions of the human brain as well. So let's see. We need to wait a bit, and hopefully our image appears here. So this is the title. Please open your exercise books, and you can just write the title there with the date, of course, the nervous system. So, what is the basic function of our nervous system? You can see it here. It receives information and it makes your body act. It also transmits information. Really simple. If you touch a surface, for instance, in your house, there's a heater, and you don't know that the heater is on, you just touch it. There's a really quick stimulus traveling along your nervous system, and this is why you can just really quickly pull away your hand. So please write the information in your exercise book. You don't need to draw this image. We are going to draw later. What is the basic unit of structure in the brain? I mentioned the gray matter and the white matter. Yeah, these parts are made up of neurons. The basic unit of structure is the neuron. And the neuron has a special anatomy. Let's see that. As you can see, there's an inner central part of it with the nucleus. Nucleus is sejtmag in Hungarian. Then, as you can see, it has a longer tail-like structure. We call that the axon. Even the Hungarian name is that. And there are shorter but still elongated structures coming out of the central part. We call those dendrites. So, dendrite, axon, nucleus. These are the most important parts. You also need to remember that the long axons have very special endings, the axon terminals. And the axon is covered by smaller sections of myelin sheath. So this is the basic structure of the neural cell. You can find a similar image in your book if you open it. At page 34, you can see that there at the top. We don't need to know all the other parts. Later on in secondary school or at university, you can go into more details. Today we are just going to learn the basic structure of it. If you have this written in your exercise book, you can just open your workbook at page 32 and please label the diagram there. Write the different parts of the neural cell around it. So we have the dendrites, cell body, axon, nucleus, and the axon terminals. It's on page 32, task 1. Of course, you can always stop the video footage and you can just complete your tasks. Now, let's continue. We mentioned the stimulus or the nerve impulse traveling through the body to different neurons and back. But how is that done in your body? Actually, it is a bit connected to the topic of electricity. Basically, the neurons or the membranes of the neurons get charged. When there's a kind of simple resting condition of the neuron, the outer membrane has a positive charge because it contains sodium ions. The symbol of sodium ion can be seen here. But this membrane can become negative. The charges can become negative outside if there's a stimulus arriving there, because the ion channels can open up and the sodium positive ions can go inside and the inner part of the membrane gets positive while the outer part gets negative. And these positive parts just push each other further, so this way there's a kind of electric current traveling in your body. So the nerve impulse, neural membrane gets charged, becomes negative outside, positive inside of the membrane. It's all because of sodium ions. If you check this image, you can see this really well, that there's a kind of gap, a cleft between two axons. Actually, this gap is called synaptic cleft. A synapse is the official name in biology of this little cleft here. So, synapses, sodium ions, membrane gets charged. So this is the simple story of the nerve impulse. Let's move on. I just mentioned the procedure of the nerve impulse and the stimulus. The end of axon where it connects to another neuron is called a synapse. In American English they often say synapse. Both forms are used. Please write this information in your exercise book. If you want to imagine the whole thing, here you can see the magnified image of the synaptical cleft, but you can see the two neurons drawn really close to each other there. We often use two abbreviations when we speak about the human nervous system. CNS is something very simple. You can find this image in your book on page 34, so you can have a look at this there as well. The central nervous system contains your brain and the spinal cord, and it's often abbreviated like that, CNS. The other abbreviation is PNS, which is the peripheral nervous system. You know, the peripheral nerves, all the nerves in the body, and the ganglion cells of the spinal cord belong in this special group. What about the central part first? The most important, of course, is the brain, protected by the skull. You can find the parts labeled in your book on page 35. Let's see these parts. Cerebrum is the biggest section of it. At the lower back of your head, you can find the cerebellum, nagyagy, kisagy, hypothalamus, the brainstem, and the spinal cord. You can find the Hungarian meanings of these words here in the word list. So once again, cerebrum, cerebellum, hypothalamus, brainstem, and the spinal cord. We are going to analyze three of these: the cerebrum, the cerebellum, and the brainstem. Let's start with the cerebrum, which is the biggest part. You can see a nice diagram of that here. The main and most important thing first, that it is divided into two parts, the left and the right hemisphere. And this is the part which controls and coordinates our whole body basically. Let's practice the names of the different parts of it. There's the frontal lobe, which is right here at the front of your head. The parietal lobe, the occipital lobe, and the temporal lobe. The temporal lobe is on this side. So basically I should stand like this, and you can imagine which part is which if I stand in this kind of position. Okay? You can even try that out. So frontal lobe, parietal lobe, occipital lobe, and temporal lobe. Let's analyze this image now. Which part is responsible for visual activity? Very often you say that, oh, I can see little stars if you hit this area. Yes, right there, the occipital lobe. Which part is responsible for your memories? Yes, the temporal lobe here on the sides. Which is responsible for planning things, thinking, cognitive skills, even your short-term memory? That's a really important part of our lives. So there's the frontal lobe. You can find it there. And your senses, touching, smelling, tasting, and so on and forth, is controlled by the parietal lobe. Please write down this part here, and I would be happy if you could draw the diagram with the parts labeled and the most important functions. So you can stop the video footage and you can do that. What about the cerebellum, which is the second largest part of the brain? It lies beneath the back of the cerebrum. This is really important when we speak about motor learning, but this is not about traffic. Motor learning means the movements of your body parts, limbs, how you walk upstairs, and how you can feel where you are, and such things. Balance and equilibrium is also controlled by these. So I would just highlight these two here in year 8. Motor learning and balance and equilibrium. The next one is the brainstem located between the cerebrum and the spinal cord. It controls breathing, blood pressure, and heart rate. These are the most important functions. It's a relatively smaller section of your brain. Now we have 2 YouTube videos. Please copy the links and you can see some more information on the parts of your brain. And this one here is rather exciting. You can decide whether you are a left hemisphere controlled person or a right hemisphere controlled person. So you can just check the test. I will not click on this one, you can do that at home, but let's start watching this one. If it works, we will see. Yeah, it starts. And now on top.
Hey, check this out. Hey, just consider which side is your brain. Which side of your brain is test with this simple test.
Yeah, so it starts like this. So you can decide whether you are left hemisphere dominant or right hemisphere dominant if you check that video. Please finish all the tasks in the book when you completed reading the chapters in the book. Page 32, 33. On page 33 there's task 3, 4 and 5. And that's it, because on the next page there's the new chapter. So keep up good work. Bye bye.